So welcome to what is the third in our series of club briefings on the COVID-19 Safe Return to Gaelic Games. My name is Feargal McGill. I'm the Director of Player Club and Games Administration, and I'm also the Secretary of the COVID Advisory Committee. So the aim of today's briefing is to bring you up to date with the interim advice regarding positive symptomatology. We'll also give you some information on the latest updates available around ancillary facilities and when they can open, meeting room usage, the role of the COVID supervisor, and indeed the referee COVID supervisor role. And then, as we have done in previous webinars, we look at some common questions and we'll highlight the latest sources of information. So to begin with, we want to draw your attention to one of the latest things that we issued this week, which is our interim advice on dealing with positive symptomatology. So our COVID advisory group have produced interim guidance on dealing with positive symptomatology. In other words, what happens if there is a positive case or positive symptoms among someone in your playing population, or indeed someone as part of the backroom team with the team. So the full document can be accessed on our website at learning.gaa.ie. Now, it was sent out to all club and county secretaries as well on Monday. So it's a step-by-step guide to dealing with a positive case. And we also look at the issue of close versus casual contacts. And for the moment, the GAA are advising a cautious approach. In other words, players and coaching personnel should consider themselves close contacts until a risk assessment has been completed by public health authorities and they are told otherwise. So in other words, consider yourself a close contact until you've been advised otherwise. But you should also note that we are anticipating further guidance shortly on this question from the health authorities, and as always we'll share that once it's available. So if you can just hang in there with us, when we have better advice from the health authorities we will share it. This is, as I've mentioned before, a question that's key to all sports, but for the moment we're advising a cautious approach, and we will update you as soon as we can on this. So over the course of the next few slides, we're going to look at some of the latest updates on COVID-19 in the GAA. And first of all, we're going to look at the position on ancillary facilities, in other words, everything outside of the playing area, if you like. So the following are permitted to open from June 29th, and those are AstroTurf facilities for club members, hurling ball walls, walkways but with social distancing still in place, outdoor handball alleys, and you can have officer training and meetings, but that's subject to the guidelines prepared by the National Health and Safety Committee, and we'll go into those in some detail on the next slide. We have to advise though that gyms and dressing rooms should not open currently, and that's to do with the fact that, something I've mentioned before, that you are 19 times more likely to contract the virus indoors than outdoors. So in terms of keeping the risk low, we're strongly advising that gyms and dressing rooms remain closed. Other facilities that are allowed to open, subject to the relevant government regulations being followed, and these are more commercial items that clubs are involved with. So bars serving food, businesses operated by third parties using GAA premises under licence or lease. The exception to that, as I've mentioned, is gyms, where gyms should not open. AstroTurf facilities for commercial usage or playgrounds. So if you are planning to hold a GAA meeting indoors, you should follow the following direction. First and foremost, we would say that if you can hold meetings outdoors, or you can have virtual meetings, they are preferable, because again, it's about risk, it's about lowering the risk. However, if it is essential to stage a meeting indoors, first and foremost you should adhere to the government limit on a maximum of 50 people being involved indoors. You should ensure that the 2 metre social distancing rules apply and establish room capacity on that basis. There should also be appropriate signage indoors. The room should be kept ventilated. Hand sanitizer should be in place, and people should use that when they're entering the building. The room and any equipment used should be disinfected after use. The record of attendees should be maintained, and that's of course for contact tracing purposes should something arise in the 48 hours following the meeting. And we would encourage the use of face coverings for anyone attending an indoor meeting. So just some basic points by way of reminder in terms of the role of the COVID supervisor. COVID supervisors should not put themselves at risk while carrying out the role, so they need to be as careful as everyone else in terms of maintaining social distancing and the other control measures that are in place. Their main role, as you know, is the management of return to play health questionnaires and declarations. They should maintain a record of attendees at training or games or meetings, whatever the case may be, and as I mentioned, again, that's for contact tracing purposes in case something does arise. They should ensure regular sanitising of facilities and equipment after each session involving your team. I was at a training session, a couple of training sessions myself this weekend. You know, it only probably takes 5 minutes at the end of the session to do that, so it's very practical stuff. It's stuff you should be doing in your own home anyway. We'd also advise COVID supervisors to keep up to date with HSE and Gaelic Games guidelines. Keep an eye out on the learning website for various updates from ourselves. And then finally, the COVID supervisor should inform the club executive of any concerns in relation to COVID or indeed any incidents of non-compliance. So just a reminder also on some of the provisions in relation to the health questionnaire and declaration. The questionnaire is now available on returntoplay.gaa.ie. The hard copy version is also available. That's in the return to play document if that's the route you choose to take. We remind you all again that the health questionnaire must be completed by each participant before returning to club activity, so it must be completed in full. And then subsequent to that, each participant should declare that their health status hasn't changed the next time they go to a training session or game. The COVID supervisors, as we mentioned, should monitor completion of the health questionnaire and the health declaration. They should be satisfied that everybody attending a training session or game is up to date on that. And the presence of symptoms or temperatures, just a reminder, over 37.5 precludes attendance at training or games. If you have a temperature over 37.5, please do not attend training or games. So again, and you're probably tired of hearing me say this, but it is important to record attendance at training and games. The COVID supervisor will do that. And the reason that's so important, and forgive me for repeating myself, but the reason it's so important is in the event that there is an incident. We need to have the details of everyone who's at a training in place for contact tracing purposes. So as I mentioned again, at the end of each training session, it's important to clean and sanitize all facilities and equipment that were used during the training session. And that'll include things such as door handles, footballs, slitters, even cones, whatever has been used in the training session. And you can just use ordinary over-the-counter disinfectant spray or wipes, but ensure that they're listed as killing 99% of bacteria before going out to purchase them. And again, it's important to be aware of the latest guidelines. You can keep up to date on all the latest advice from key groups, including those listed. And you should also notify the club executive of concerns and issues, particularly in relation to non-compliance. So within each of our counties, there will be somebody appointed to a referee COVID supervisor role. And their job will be to monitor the compliance with protocols and the Gaelic Games Safe Return document for match officials in their county. So they should ensure that referees comply with all the necessary protocols. That's the e-learning module and the health questionnaire, and of course the declaration prior to each game or indeed training session if referees happen to be helping clubs out with training sessions. And only referees who have complied with all of those protocols will be put on the match official list. And again, if there are COVID-19 cases, the COVID supervisor's role in this case will be to manage those in line with government guidelines. So just to conclude, we're going to look at some of the common questions that have been submitted to us in the course of the last few days, and which we hope will be useful to you to get further information on. So when can clubs return to contact training? Well, clubs have been allowed to return to contact training in both the north and the south from Monday, June 29th. In the south, challenge games can take place from June 29th, and in the 6 counties, challenge games can commence from June 17th. So in terms of the protocols around challenge matches, well, the first thing to state is that it's really important that teams seek permission for the game from the county, from the province, or indeed centrally from Croke Park, depending on the circumstances. So if it's a game between 2 clubs from within a county, they should seek permission from the county board. If it's a game between 2 clubs from the same province, they should seek permission from the provincial council, and if it's cross province, in other words, two clubs from two different provinces, they should seek permission from the GAA centrally. And why this is important is quite simply you're not insured unless you have permission for the game to take place. So it's very important to state that the permission has to be sought for any challenge games. And then teams must manage the protocols carefully also. The health questionnaire, the health declaration, the sanitising equipment and signage and spectators. So the host club will be responsible for the signage and for ensuring that the spectators are socially distant and that there aren't more than 200 in the ground. And then in terms of equipment, the health questionnaire and the health declaration, each club should do that for their own team. So we've also received a lot of queries around the guidelines around the disinfecting of equipment and facilities. And what we would say here is that common sense should be used primarily around this point. So any playing equipment that has been used in any touch points within the club grounds, such as door handles, gates, taps, etc., should be disinfected by the COVID supervisor after each session. And again, as we mentioned earlier, use disinfectant spray and tissues or disinfectant wipes. Ensure they are listed as killing 99% of bacteria and safely dispose of those tissues and wipes after use. So in terms of what clubs are expected to do for managing spectators at challenge games or training, look, you should first and foremost ensure that spectators are kept separate from players in line with social distancing requirements. And then the club facilities should display signage and information for managing COVID-19, the common signage that we're all seeing when we go into shops or when we're going about our daily business. And spectators' numbers should be managed in line with agreed protocols and government guidelines, and that at the moment is that only a maximum of 200 people are allowed in the ground. After July 20th, that will change to a maximum of 500 people. So again, we're looking for spectators, we're looking for anyone attending games to use common sense. Please don't congregate in groups. Try and maintain social distance from those whom you must do so from. So what we've done in previous webinars, we're just going to put up a list here of the places you can go to for the latest sources of information on COVID-19 in the GAA. And I suppose most importantly, from a Gaelic Games perspective, the latest COVID-19 information for Gaelic Games is at learning.gaa.ie/COVID-19. Huge amount of resources there for people. That should answer most of the questions that people have. The COVID-19 online learning for Gaelic Games is at learning.gaa.ie/COVID-19 learning. And that's the e-learning module. And these webinars are also available there. And the COVID-19 educational resources for Gaelic Games, we've got videos, user guides, slides, templates, posters, advice documents. That's all available at learning.gaa.ie/COVID-19 resources. And finally, the FAQs are also available on the learning.gaa.ie site, where you'll find many of the common questions, which are common to all clubs and which are certainly worth reading. So Arish Garamai Hagav, and listen, everybody stay safe out there, and we hope training and games are going well for everybody in the GAA. We'll keep you updated, as we've mentioned before, whenever there's anything new to tell you. So, Slán Nish.